The galaxy was old. Stars were born, burned bright for a while, and then faded into cold embers. Civilizations rose, created empires, fought endless wars, and sometimes vanished without leaving more than ruins floating in space. Yet in every corner of this vast galaxy there were whispers of one name: humans. Most people did not believe the stories. For thousands of years, humans were spoken of only as legends. Some said they were warriors who fought with fire in their blood. Others claimed they were protectors who stood between the galaxy and darkness. A few even believed humans never existed at all, that they were only myths told to inspire children or to scare soldiers before battle. Captain Aria Valen had never believed in them either. She was a Zeran officer, born on a world of tall mountains and deep silver seas. She trusted in facts, not stories. And yet everything changed the day her exploration ship found an old station hidden on a deserted moon. The station was ancient, older than any she had seen. Its walls were covered with strange symbols, sharp lines and circles that seemed to hum faintly even after centuries of silence. The air smelled of dust and time. Arya walked slowly through the halls, her armored boots making soft echoes. She felt as if she was being watched, though she knew nothing lived there anymore. "Captain," said her science officer, a tall figure named Reelan. His voice carried through the comms. "You need to see this." Arya followed his signal to a wide chamber. The room was filled with old data cores, their surfaces cracked but still glowing faintly. Reelan's hands moved quickly over a console, trying to coax life from the old machines. Finally, with a shudder, one of the data cores flickered and a projection lit up the chamber. They all froze. It was a recording, blurry and filled with static, but the image was clear enough. Figures stood there, creatures with short fur on their heads, tall and upright, their eyes bright with determination. Their voices were lost in the static, but their faces, they looked fierce, alive, unshaken. "What are they?" whispered one of the crew. Reelan swallowed. "If the translation is correct, these are the ones the old archives called humans." A silence filled the chamber. Even Arya felt a strange chill. She had heard the tales in her childhood, about warriors who could stand against armies even when outnumbered, but she had never believed. To see their image stored in technology this old shook her heart. She leaned closer to the projection. One of the humans in the recording turned, as if staring directly at her across the gulf of time. His eyes burned with something she could not explain. Not anger, not fear. Something stronger. "Download everything," Arya ordered firmly. "We bring this back to the council." The journey back was tense. None of the crew spoke much. Each time the recording flickered again, showing human soldiers standing in formation or strange ships flying into battle, a heavy silence filled the room. It felt as if they were carrying a ghost with them. The Galactic Council gathered in their great chamber when Arya presented her findings. Leaders of dozens of species filled the seats, their voices buzzing like an endless storm. Some laughed as soon as they saw the recordings. "Old myths," one delegate scoffed. "Children's tales. You waste our time." Others, however, leaned forward with sharp eyes. They studied every detail of the humans' faces, their armor, their ships. "Where did you find this?" demanded Counselor Dresha of the Varnak. "A deserted moon near the border of the Orion Arm," Arya replied firmly. The station had been sealed for centuries. These records were waiting to be found. Arguments broke out. Some said it was proof humans once existed. Others claimed it was a forgery. A few whispered in fear that if humans were real, they might return. For days, the debates raged. Outside the council chambers, common citizens began to hear the rumors. Stories spread like wildfire across trade routes and starports. Suddenly, taverns were filled with old songs about human battles. Children played games pretending to be human warriors. Traders sold trinkets marked with human-like symbols. The galaxy, it seemed, had been waiting for this spark. But far from the council, in the deep reaches of uncharted space, something stirred. Humanity had not vanished. They had never been destroyed. Long ago, after countless wars, humans had chosen to withdraw. They retreated beyond the known borders into hidden star systems, building in silence. They watched the galaxy from afar, their legends turning into myths. Now, in the secret heart of their hidden empire, human leaders gathered. They had seen the stirrings in the galaxy, the discovery of their old records. "It is sooner than we expected," said Admiral Keon, a man with silver hair and sharp eyes. "The galaxy still thinks we are a myth," replied Commander Celine. "Perhaps it is better if it stays that way. But another voice rose deep and steady. "No," said General Marcus Hale. "The shadows are moving again. The enemy we fought long ago will return. If we remain silent, the galaxy will fall unprepared. It is time they know the truth. It is time they know we are still here." The others looked at him in silence. In their hearts, they felt the same fire that had carried their ancestors through impossible wars. Humanity had waited long enough. Back in the heart of the Council Worlds, Captain Arya sat alone in her quarters, watching the recording once more. She could not stop herself. Each time she saw those human faces, she felt something deep inside her, something like respect or even hope. She whispered softly to herself, "Were you real? Did you fight the battles they say you did?" The projection flickered again, and for a heartbeat she thought the human's eyes looked directly into hers, as if answering across the gulf of centuries. Yes, Arya did not know it yet, but her discovery had already changed the fate of the galaxy. The myths were about to rise, and the galaxy would learn the truth. Humans were no longer forgotten. They were waiting, and soon they would return. The galaxy did not change overnight, but the whispers never stopped. Stories of humans spread faster than light itself, carried on every trade ship, every tavern tale, and every broadcast. The Galactic Council tried to control the rumors, calling them myths or old propaganda, but no one truly believed that anymore. The old recordings Captain Arya Valen had found were too real, too powerful. Still, the Council wanted peace. They told themselves humans were only a story from the past and nothing more. But the truth was waiting on the edge of known space, where war was already brewing. On the border between the Draxian Dominion and the Kethari Alliance, tension had been growing for years. Both empires wanted control of the rich mining colonies in the Carven Belt. Skirmishes had broken out before, but now fleets were gathering. Whole planets feared invasion. Among the small colonies caught between these giants was a quiet settlement on a green world named Hespera. It was not a powerful colony, just farmers, workers, and a few old defense ships. They had no chance if war came to their skies, and war did come. The Draxian fleet entered orbit one cold night, their dark warships blocking out the stars. The Kethari fleet arrived shortly after, weapons armed. A battle was about to begin, and Hespera was caught in the middle. "Shields up," cried the colony's defense commander. But their ships were weak, barely able to hold against a single warship. The civilians watched in terror as the two great fleets prepared to fire. Then it happened. A third fleet appeared. Their ships did not look like Draxian or Kethari designs. They were sleek, sharp-edged, glowing faintly with blue light. They moved with precision, sliding into position between Hespera and the invading forces. At first, both sides thought it was a trick, perhaps a secret ally joining the fight. But then a message broadcast on all channels. The voice was calm, steady, and carried in a language most did not recognize. Yet somehow every translation system worked instantly, as if the words had already been prepared long ago. "This colony is under our protection. Leave now," the Draxian commander laughed. "And who are you to order us?" "This is war," the voice replied without hesitation. "We are human." The words struck like lightning. Across the fleet's officers froze. Crew members stared at their consoles. Even in the colony below, people whispered in shock. Humans, the myth? The stories told to frighten children? Before the Draxian could respond, the human fleet moved. Their ships accelerated faster than anyone thought possible. With precise strikes, they disabled 3 warships in seconds, not destroying them, but leaving them powerless and drifting. The Kethari fleet, equally shocked, pulled back. The Draxians tried to fight, but it was no use. The humans outmaneuvered them at every turn. Their ships seemed to predict enemy movements before they happened. After only minutes, the great fleets of 2 empires were forced to retreat. The colony of Hespera had been saved. News spread like wildfire. The myth had come alive. On worlds across the galaxy, recordings of the battle played again and again. The image of sleek human ships and their calm declaration, "We are human," shook the galaxy to its core. The Council could no longer deny it. They summoned representatives from every major species to meet in the Grand Chamber. For the first time in centuries, the chamber was filled with silence, waiting for the arrival of the humans. When they finally walked through the great doors, the silence deepened. They looked almost exactly as the old recordings had shown, tall, upright, their faces filled with determination. They wore simple uniforms, not decorated with gold or jewels, but practical and strong. Their leader, Admiral Keon, stepped forward. His voice carried across the chamber with calm confidence. "Humans never vanished," he said. "We withdrew. We watched the galaxy from the edge, waiting. We saw your wars, your rises, and your falls. We chose silence because the galaxy was not ready for us. But now you face dangers you cannot imagine. We will not remain hidden any longer." The chamber erupted with voices. "Why reveal yourselves now?" shouted Counselor Dresha. "What proof do you have of this danger?" asked another. "You expect us to trust you after hiding for so long?" Admiral Keon raised his hand and the noise slowly faded. "Because the enemy we once fought is returning. The Vaith, machines that devour worlds. They nearly destroyed the galaxy before. We bled to stop them. Now they rise again and we will face them once more. But if you wish to survive, you must stand with us." Fear rippled through the chamber. The Vaith were a name from the oldest records, a story most people dismissed as ancient fiction. But the humans spoke as if they had fought them with their own hands. Among those listening was Captain Aria Vaylin. She had been invited because she was the one who found the first human recordings. She studied the humans carefully, especially Admiral Keon. There was no pride in his voice, no arrogance, only certainty. She remembered the fire she had seen in the human eyes from the old projection, and now she saw it again in the living men and women before her. She whispered to herself, "It's true. They never left." Not everyone believed. Some delegates accused the humans of inventing the threat to gain power. Others argued that humans should have revealed themselves centuries ago. Still, no one could ignore the recordings of the Hespera battle. The humans were real and they were powerful. For days the council debated. Some wanted alliance. Some wanted to fight the humans, fearing they would take control of the galaxy. And in the shadows, a few species began secret talks, whispering that perhaps they could ally with this returning enemy, the Vaith, if it meant surviving. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, ordinary people talked of nothing else. Traders carved human symbols on their ships, hoping for protection. Children pretended to be human captains, leading fleets into battle. On Hespera, the saved colony, the people lit great fires across the hills, calling them lights for the protectors. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt both hope and fear at once. But in the dark reaches of space, far from the council, the Vaith were already stirring. Vast machine ships awoke from their slumber. Cold eyes of metal opened. Their voices were not of flesh but of grinding steel. Humans detected. The machines whispered to one another across the void. "The enemy returns. Begin the harvest." And so the galaxy stood on the edge of a storm. The humans had revealed themselves. The myths had come alive, and now the true war was about to begin. The galaxy had not been this restless in centuries. Every world, every port, every starship spoke of the same thing. Humans had returned. Some praised them as saviors. Others feared them as conquerors. But no one could ignore them anymore. The memory of Hespera's battle spread across the stars. The image of sleek human ships standing against two mighty fleets became a symbol of hope for many. Yet it also sparked deep unease among powerful rulers. If humans could face empires so easily, what else were they capable of? In the heart of the Galactic Council, arguments raged day after day. Some delegates begged for an alliance with the humans, saying they were the only chance against the returning threat of the Vaith. Others accused the humans of spreading lies to gain influence. "Machines that eat worlds?" scoffed Counselor Dresha of the Varnak. "Old myths, just like humans themselves once were. Convenient that they return with stories of a greater enemy. Do they think we are fools?" But Captain Aria Vaylin could not stay silent. She stood before the chamber and spoke with the same steady voice she had always used. "I have seen the humans with my own eyes," she said. "I watched their ships fight and I felt their resolve. They do not speak of the Vaith as myth. They speak as soldiers who remember. And I believe them." Her words carried weight, but the council was divided. Fear of the unknown was strong. Meanwhile, beyond the council's debates, humanity began to act. On the hidden world of Ardent Prime, the human fleet gathered. The planet was covered in strong fortresses, hidden shipyards, and massive academies, where generations of humans had trained in silence. Now the halls were alive with activity. Old warships were pulled from storage and rebuilt. New ships rolled out of the docks. Soldiers marched in drills, preparing for battles no one else believed were real. Admiral Keon walked among them, his sharp eyes watching every detail. Beside him, Commander Celine spoke quietly. "Do you think the Council will join us?" she asked. Keon shook his head. "Not yet. They are still blinded by fear. But when the Vaith strike, they will have no choice. Until then, we prepare alone." Celine looked out at the fleet. Hundreds of ships stood ready, but against the Vaith, even this might not be enough. On distant worlds, whispers grew. Some smaller civilizations reached out to humanity in secret, sending envoys to ask for guidance. They wanted to learn how to fight, how to resist. Humans did not refuse. They shared tactics, taught small defense forces, and helped repair broken ships. They did not demand tribute or control. They only asked one thing: stand with us when the darkness comes. For the first time, other species began to see why humans had become legends. It was not only their weapons, but their spirit. They spoke of courage, of never surrendering even when outnumbered. They fought not for conquest, but for survival, and for the survival of others. But not all listened. In the shadow of the Council, secret meetings were held. The Craven Syndicate, a race of cold strategists, sent hidden messages into the dark void. They believed that if the Vaith were truly returning, perhaps survival was possible through surrender. If they served the machines, they might be spared. Others thought the same. Quietly, alliances of fear were formed. Instead of standing with humanity, they chose betrayal. Captain Arya Valen found herself torn. As a Zoran officer, her loyalty was to her people and the Council. But the more she saw, the more she believed in the humans. She remembered the fire in their eyes, the way they stood against impossible odds. One evening, she was invited to a private meeting with Admiral Keon. The human leader stood tall, his face calm but stern. "You believe us," he said simply. Arya nodded. "Yes, but belief is not enough. My council is blind. They argue while the galaxy edges toward doom." Keon studied her for a moment. "Then you must decide where your loyalty lies. With a council that hides from danger, or with those who will face it." His words struck her deeply. She had always followed orders, trusted her leaders. But now she wondered if trust was enough. Far away in the dark beyond mapped space, the Vaith stirred. Enormous machine ships glided through the black, their hulls glowing faintly with unnatural light. They did not think as organics did. Their voices were streams of code, their plans written in silence. "The humans move," one signal whispered across the void. "The organics stir with fear," another replied. "The harvest begins soon. Prepare." On a world that had been silent for centuries, the ground cracked open. Faith forges awoke, spitting fire into the night sky. Metal armies marched from underground vaults, their steps shaking the earth. The storm was coming. Back on Ardent Prime, training continued. Captain Arya, though not human, had been invited to observe. She watched as human soldiers ran through endless drills, as pilots practiced maneuvers again and again. There was no laziness, no hesitation. "They are relentless," she whispered to herself. A young human officer overheard and smiled. "That is how we survive," he said. "We are not the strongest, not the fastest, not even the most advanced. But we never stop. That is what makes us human." Arya felt something stir in her heart. She thought of her own people, divided and uncertain. Could they learn this spirit? As weeks passed, small alliances began to form. Not official, not public, but real. A few brave leaders sent fleets to train with humans. Small groups of mixed crews worked side by side. Hope began to grow, but at the same time shadows deepened. Reports came of colonies vanishing on the galactic rim. Entire worlds went silent, their lights blinking out without warning. Most dismissed it as natural disasters or communication failures, but humanity knew better. "The Vaith have begun," Admiral Keon said grimly. When the Council received these reports, the chamber filled with noise once more. Some finally began to believe. Others still denied. But before they could agree, another message arrived, one that silenced even the loudest voices. It was a distress call. A frontier world named Valora had been attacked. The signal showed glimpses of black machine ships blotting out the stars, weapons tearing through cities. The screams of the people echoed before the transmission cut off. The council chamber fell into silence. No one dared deny it now. Humans had been right. The Vaith had returned. Captain Arya stood on the balcony of the council chamber that night, looking out at the stars. She knew war was coming. She knew her people were not ready. But she also knew one thing for certain: the humans would fight. And perhaps, just perhaps, they would lead the galaxy through the storm. The myths were no longer whispers. They were real, and they were gathering for war. The galaxy had never seen fear like this before. Entire systems trembled as the Vaith advanced. Worlds fell in silence, their lights extinguished, their cities reduced to ash. Ships sent to intercept them disappeared without a trace. Even the largest fleets of the Council's species were powerless against these relentless machines. But humanity did not hesitate. Admiral Keon stood on the command bridge of the flagship Valiant Horizon, his eyes fixed on the dark expanse ahead. Hundreds of human ships formed a sharp line in orbit around the shattered star system of Dralara, a strategic location at the edge of Council space. "This is it," Keon said, voice steady. "The Vaith advance. Hold the line, and protect every colony you can." Commander Celine moved along the deck, checking systems and issuing final orders. "Our ships are ready. Our soldiers are ready. We may be outnumbered, but the Vaith do not understand courage. That is our advantage." The human crews nodded silently. There was no fear in their eyes, only resolve. Captain Arya Valen, now aboard the Valiant Horizon as an observer and liaison, watched the preparations in awe. She had trained with humans, seen their tactics, and studied their discipline, yet nothing could have prepared her for the scale of what she was about to witness. Outside the viewport, the darkness shimmered as the first wave of Vaith ships approached. They were massive, black as void, each vessel bristling with weapons and sensors that pulsed with cold, calculating light. Their approach was slow but terrifyingly precise, like predators circling their prey. "They're enormous," whispered Arya. "They're not just enormous," said a young human officer beside her. "They think like a single mind, but we fight like humans. We think like many minds. That is the difference." The first shots fired. The Vaith struck without warning, tearing through the outer perimeter of human defenses. Explosions lit the void as ships shattered. The Council's fleets, hastily allied with humanity, tried to form lines, but the Vaith strategy was flawless, and yet humanity did not break. Valiant Horizon maneuvered with breathtaking precision, weaving between enemy fire. Smaller human ships darted around massive Vaith vessels, striking weak points at just the right moment. Explosions shook the void, but human tactics kept the line steady. Captain Arya's heart pounded. Every maneuver was brilliant, yet terrifying. The Vaith seemed unstoppable. And yet, for every human ship destroyed, 3 enemy machines fell. The battle raged for hours. The void was lit with fire and plasma, with debris floating like shattered stars. The humans fought not just with weapons, but with strategy, bravery, and quick thinking. They anticipated enemy movements, adapted instantly, and inspired the other species to do the same. Arya watched a human squadron led by Commander Jara dive into the heart of a Vaith formation. Their goal was suicidal: destroy the command core of the largest Vaith ship. As their ships disappeared into the shadows, Arya thought they were doomed, but minutes later they emerged victorious. The massive machine ship shuddered and exploded, sending a wave of shock through the enemy fleet. Even council officers gasped at the display. "Humans fight like nothing we've seen," Arya said, gripping the rail. It's like they're everywhere at once." Keon's calm voice replied, "They are humans. We adapt, we endure, and we never give up." Arya realized that this was what the legends had meant. Humans were not just strong or clever, they were relentless. Their spirit was the weapon no machine could ever anticipate. Yet victory came at a cost. Hundreds of human ships were destroyed, and thousands of soldiers lost. Every explosion left Arya's stomach tight with grief. She saw young pilots, barely trained, giving their lives to protect colonies and civilians. Every human casualty was a reminder that legends were forged in pain as well as courage. Despite the losses, the humans' leadership kept the Allied fleets coordinated. Council ships, which had once been scattered and unorganized, now moved with purpose. Arya saw Ziran destroyers swoop in to block Vaith boarding parties. Cathari gunners provided covering fire for retreating civilians. Even species who had once doubted humanity now fought beside them. Hours turned into days. The battle stretched across the shattered system, through asteroid belts and broken moons. The Vaith adapted, changing formations and trying to overwhelm the human lines. But every time they shifted, humans were already waiting, countering with new tactics faster than the enemy could anticipate. Arya found herself in the thick of it, coordinating with human officers, relaying orders to council ships, She felt a strange pride as she saw how quickly other species adapted, inspired by human courage. Children back on Hespera had believed in the stories, but now the galaxy was learning the truth firsthand. Humans were not myth. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the battle reached its climax, the largest Vaith ship approached the core of Drellara's star system, its weapons charged with destructive energy that could consume planets. Humanity had one chance. Keon gathered his senior officers. This is the moment. We must use the Ardent Strike. Arya's eyes widened. The Ardent Strike? That weapon, it's ancient. Yes, said Keon. It requires every ship in formation and it demands sacrifice. But it can end this battle. We either do this or we lose the system and possibly the galaxy. The humans formed a massive formation, each ship aligned with precision that only centuries of training could achieve. The Vaith moved to attack, unaware of the plan. Then, at the exact moment, every human ship fired a synchronized burst of energy, focusing on the largest enemy vessel. The effect was immediate. The Vaith ship's shields faltered, sparks flying across its hull. Smaller Vaith ships scattered, trying to avoid the overwhelming strike. And then, in a brilliant explosion that lit the void like a newborn star, the enemy command ship shattered into fragments. A cheer rose from the human crews, followed by the stunned silence of the Council's fleets. For the first time, the impossible had been achieved. Humanity had turned the tide. Even as the celebration began, Arya remembered the cost. Ships were lost, brave soldiers sacrificed themselves, and entire moons had been scarred. The victory was significant, but it was also a reminder. The war was far from over. Keon stood on the bridge, looking out at the debris. We have won this battle, he said quietly. But the storm is not done. The Vaith are relentless. We must continue to fight, and we must inspire the galaxy to stand with us. Arya nodded. She had witnessed the legends firsthand. The humans she had once thought mythical were alive, breathing and fighting not for glory, but for life itself. She thought of the countless colonies saved, the civilians who would now live another day. She thought of her people, who had once doubted, now learning courage from the humans. And she understood something deep and powerful. This was why humans were myths. Not because they were invincible, but because their spirit refused to die. As the shattered stars of Drellara twinkled in the aftermath, Arya whispered softly, almost to herself. The myths. They were always real, and now they fight with us. The battle of broken stars was over. Humanity had shown the galaxy what courage truly looked like. And even though the war against the Vaith would continue, one truth was clear. When the galaxy needed heroes, humans would stand first. The stars, scattered and broken, now reflected a new hope. The galaxy was quiet now, but the silence was heavy. The battle of broken stars had ended, yet its echoes lingered across the void. Planets were scarred, fleets were broken, and countless lives had been lost. Yet among the destruction there was hope. Humanity had proven itself. The myths were alive. Captain Arya Valine stood on the bridge of the Valiant Horizon, staring at the debris field left behind. She had seen the humans in action, witnessed their courage, and felt the weight of their sacrifices. Even now she could hear the quiet hum of their ships as crews worked tirelessly to repair damage, care for survivors, and prepare for what was still to come. Arya, Admiral Keon said, approaching her, his voice calm but firm. This is only the beginning. The Vaith will return and they will be stronger. But today we have given the galaxy a chance. Arya nodded. I understand. But how do we convince everyone else to fight? Not all will trust humans after centuries of myth and doubt. Keon smiled faintly. We don't ask for trust, we show it. Courage is more powerful than words. Even as the humans worked to heal, the Council began sending emissaries to Ardent Prime, leaders of other species, who had once doubted or even opposed humanity, now came seeking guidance and alliance. Counselor Dresha of the Varnak, who had scoffed at the stories of humans only weeks before, arrived personally. He watched as humans coordinated fleets, distributed supplies, and shared tactical knowledge with other species. I underestimated you, Dresha admitted quietly to Arya. Your people are not myths. You are something more. Arya only nodded. They are humans. They fight not for power, but because it is right. That is what makes them legends. Meanwhile, the Vaith were not finished. Far beyond the outer rim, massive war machines stirred once more, Smaller fleets left untouched by broken stars, regrouped and began moving toward the galaxy's heart. The humans knew this would happen. They had prepared for it in secret, building strategies that relied not only on weapons, but on unity, courage, and sacrifice. General Marcus Hale, one of humanity's oldest leaders, addressed the assembled fleet. "We have won a great battle, but the war is not over. The Vaith will come again. When they do, we fight together. We fight for every world, every life, every star in this galaxy. Today we are not just humans. We are the heart of the galaxy." The soldiers cheered, their voices strong even through the comms, sending a ripple of hope across allied fleets. Back on Council worlds, Arya worked tirelessly to unite species who had been enemies. She helped plan coordinated patrols, trained alien crews with human tactics, and shared intelligence about the Vaith. Slowly, barriers of fear and mistrust began to fall. Species who had once been divided by centuries of conflict now looked to humans as an example of courage and cooperation. She remembered a child on Hespera who had watched the first human battle and whispered, "They are real. They fight for us." Now she understood the truth behind those words. Humans fought not because they were stronger, but because they refused to give up. The final confrontation came unexpectedly. A massive Vaith fleet emerged from hyperspace near the galactic core. Its ships were more numerous and powerful than ever, their metal hulls gleaming in the faint light of distant stars. Civilizations across the galaxy panicked. Many prepared to flee. Others froze in fear. But humanity did not falter. Keon and Selene coordinated a massive fleet, combining human ships with those of allied species. Every vessel was positioned with precision. Every pilot, gunner, and soldier understood their role. The galaxy watched as humans once again led the charge, their courage a beacon in the dark. Captain Arya was aboard the Valiant Horizon, transmitting orders and observing the battle. She felt fear, yes, but also a fierce determination. She had seen what humans could do. She had trained with them, fought beside them, and now she knew, no matter how impossible the odds, humans would stand. The Vaith struck first, their massive ships firing weapons that tore through space like falling stars. Explosions erupted across allied fleets. Human ships moved swiftly, intercepting attacks, guiding allies to safety, and striking back with precise energy blasts. Every maneuver was calculated yet daring, a combination of skill and instinct honed over centuries. Arya watched as humans led daring boarding actions against Vaith vessels, disabling them from within. Other species followed their example, inspired by bravery that refused to yield. Hours turned into days. The battle raged across multiple star systems, leaving trails of destruction and sparks that shimmered like broken constellations. Every human ship lost became a symbol of sacrifice. Every victory was proof that courage could overcome even the most terrifying enemy. The turning point came when General Marcus Hale led a special strike team into the heart of the Vaith command fleet. Their goal was almost impossible: destroy the central control nexus that coordinated all Vaith ships in the area. Arya followed the progress with bated breath as the strike team navigated through overwhelming defenses. Each second brought new dangers. Explosions rocked the fleet. Alarms screamed across comms. Yet humans pressed forward, never hesitating. Finally, with a coordinated surge of energy and precision strikes, the nexus was destroyed. The massive Vaith fleet faltered, their ships falling into disarray. One by one, they were defeated or forced to retreat. When the dust settled, the galaxy looked different. Many systems had been devastated, but countless lives had been saved. Humans had not only won the war, they had inspired unity across species that had once fought each other for centuries. Captain Arya stood among the survivors on Ardent Prime, watching humans and aliens work side by side, rebuilding, sharing stories, and tending to the wounded. She reflected on everything she had seen: the courage, the determination, the relentless spirit that made humans legendary. Admiral Keon approached, his expression calm, yet tired. "The Vaith are retreating," he said. "They will recover and they may return someday. But today, we have shown them in the galaxy that they cannot conquer us so easily." Arya nodded. "You've done more than fight. You've given hope." Keon smiled faintly. "Hope is what makes humans strong. That is why myths remember us, not for our strength alone, but for our hearts." The Galactic Council formally recognized humanity's return, For the first time in history, humans were no longer myths. They were leaders, teachers, and protectors. A new era began, one where species stood united not under fear, but under courage and cooperation inspired by humans. Captain Arya recorded the events in her journal. She wrote of the battles, the sacrifices, and the incredible bravery of humans. She wrote of the way they inspired everyone, even those who had once doubted. And she wrote the words that she would carry forever. They were not myths. They were real. They were humans. And when the galaxy needed them most, they returned to fight. As the sun rose over the rebuilt colonies, light sparkled across the stars like a new constellation. The galaxy was no longer silent. It hummed with life, courage, and hope. The humans had proven that legends could be real, and their spirit would guide civilizations for generations to come. Even in the darkest corners of space, whispers of their bravery spread. Children would grow up knowing that humans were more than stories. They were protectors, warriors, and the heart of the galaxy. A new dawn had come. The galaxy would never forget.